county jail. So he's just like
Just had his 60th birthday.
Yeah. I'm getting up there, but this particular book that I just released here about 3 weeks ago basically was a thought and a wish that I had back in 1992 when I was honored as one of the 10 Native American Olympians down in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And it was a huge honor, and I didn't realize at the time that there were so few Native Olympians. You hear Jim Thorpe, you hear Billy Mills, they both had movies and are tremendous athletes and role models for our people. But you don't hear about the other ones. And it was at that time I thought, wow, what a wonderful idea it would be to have a documentary film done on each one of these. And my vision for that particular series would be, talk about the religion or the spirituality, like say of myself, the Objibwa people. The migration of the Anishinaabe or the Objibwa people from the Atlantic Ocean into this neck of the woods, and how we battled with the Sioux. We moved the Cree and the Assiniboine to the north and helped the voyageurs or the into the fur trade, how they were looking for the great saltwater out of the west, the Pacific Ocean, and how they ventured into Lake of the Woods, built Fort St. Charles. I thought that would be a wonderful story, and in my case, when we were thinking about doing these Native American Olympian television series, but when I came back in 1992 from Albuquerque after that wonderful experience down there, I was raising a family, I was selling real estate, I was working at the school. As you well know, it's hard to do something like that from a small community 6 hours from Minneapolis and 2 hours from Winnipeg. And I tried to get various people interested in the project. I talked to several people. They thought it was a wonderful idea, a great idea. They didn't grasp it like I envisioned it or wanted them to grasp it. Looking back, maybe it was something that I would do and am doing now. It festered from 1992. Tried to get, like I said, several people to take this project on, and it just never developed. So while I was in Alaska, I was up there working with some Native corporations, doing consulting work for some of their foundations, helping kids, working with families and what have you. And then in 2011, after visiting Warroad, it was still festering about this project. So I went ahead and I said, this is it. I think I'm just going to go ahead and do it. Nobody else is doing it. I can't get enough people interested. So I went ahead and started Boucha Films. And I needed an address. We've got an address here in Warroad. I thought, if I'm going to do the films now, we had to do the research. I researched and found out there's 18 Native Americans now. I thought if we're going to do the American side, we might as well do the Canadian side as well. So I formed a company up there called Boucha Films Limited in Winnipeg. And it's a federal company, so we can film all across Canada. So I wanted the base. I wanted a good foundation to put these films together. Find the budgets, find people. Boucha Films basically are the executive directors. We will partnership or hire a production company to actually do the filming. We have our own writers, researchers to do each and every one of the subjects. I thought, well, if I'm going to do mine, I might as well do mine first because, you know, it's familiar to me. I know the story. I can write it. And I thought, well, you know, as long as I'm writing my story, I might as well write down my version of how I think the story should be told, although it would be condensed down once the script writers got a hold of it and told the story on film. So I went ahead and I thought, well, I'm just going to go ahead and write a book, put it on the market and see how it does. And the education that I had early on, when I moved back to Warroad in 1985 or 86, and then I become involved with the Indian Education Department. I sold real estate. We were also at that time trying to get Indian status in Canada. In order for us to do that, we had to prove we're Indians, of course. We lived here on the border, like so many across the United States, on both sides of the border that were not enrolled anywhere. We went to Red Lake, asked them, and they said, no, you're Canadian Indians. You know, all you guys were disenfranchised in 1940. And then we went to Canada and asked them, and they said, no, you live in the United States Indians. So nobody wanted us. So we had to find our own identity, and we wanted to belong somewhere. We had kids coming up that were looking at going to college, and we were looking for some of that education monies that were promised to us through treaty to use for them for that purpose. So we had to do our whole family tree. I did the family tree on my mother's side. We ended up having to do the whole family tree on my dad's side. And through that research, you gain all of this knowledge about the area and the people and how they lived and where they lived and who they married and what have you. And then through the Indian Education Department, I didn't want to be an Indian when I was growing up. I was embarrassed by the movies of like the John Wayne movies and the depiction of the Indian people. And my mother spoke Objibwa at home. We had relatives coming and going that spoke Ojibwe, and I just turned my head and I left the house. I went somewhere else, and I really don't know anybody during that time period who was Ojibwe that learned the language or wanted to learn it because of the depiction that was presented to us and everybody else. So I came back to that later. As you grow, you're looking for that spirituality, you're looking for that religion, looking for something to hold on to grasp onto, to further your soul's craving for that, that experience. So when I was with the Indian Education Department, and then I didn't know my culture or tradition, so I had to learn it. So I educated myself through talking to other people, through reading, and trying to be a good role model and a teacher, counselor, tutor for these kids that have God's faces every time you look at them. They look at you with those big eyes and wonder and have a question for you, and you have to help them, or you have that need to help. So I learned my culture. I learned the ways, the spirituality. I learned the religion. I learned the drum. I learned the reasons for the feathers. I learned the reasons for the pipes. And all of that kind of taught me. If I were to try to write this book 10 years ago, it probably wouldn't have happened. I think the timing in one's life when you're doing a project like this just comes along, and you have to recognize those doors opening, those doors closing. You have to recognize the timing, how you feel as a person, and that fulfillment of the things that you did that kind of fall into place when you're on that level of trying to be spiritual, finding your spirituality, your life, and reflecting back. I always felt that when I'm up in Alaska, it's my mountaintop, and I can look back and reflect on a lot of this stuff. So the timing was there when I did it in 2011. And it wasn't difficult. I sat down at a computer and I wrote this whole book in 2.5 months. And after taking Mrs. Lambie's class with Bob Wenzel, typing about 10 words a minute, it took me that long. But I had the whole story in my head. Just kidding. We typed a little faster than that, but it was something that just kind of fell together. But yet it was reliving. I'd have to walk away from that storyline once in a while to take a deep breath and just kind of sit back and reflect on, you relive those moments of triumph, you relive those moments of tragedy, you relive those moments of, the anxiety and the despair and everything that you write down. And it was very difficult at times, and it was joyous at other times, but I couldn't remember everything. So over 2.5 months, I managed to do 65 chapters. And it was, you're wishing that, man, I wish I would have paid more attention in English. Man, I wouldn't pay more attention in journalism. But, it was written, it was out there, it was late, I had the foundation. So then I come back to Warroad and I would talk about different things. Bob Wenzel and I played hockey together. And this book only goes up to 1995, but we, and then Judy Taylor and Joan, and, we all went to school together, and Mr. Telly, the assistant coach, and Jeannie over here, all had something to do with it. It would spark your memory, and you'd say, geez, I didn't put that in there, or talk to somebody and then figure out that maybe that story was wrong. So I spent another 14 months of edits, rewrites, and picture selection. When I gave my talk earlier, I said that there wasn't a lot of pictures taking when you're skating down there on the river when it's 20 below. Nobody in their right mind is going to grab their camera, which not many people had anyway, and run down there and take your pictures. So picture selection in a project like this, there was 482 pages. I managed to put in 164 pictures. But I put them in 91 collages, so I shrunk some down. Some come later, Jeff Parker was gracious to dig through his old drawers and find me some pictures. Bob Wenzel and Pam, he had the picture of the '64 Bantam Championship, and Beth Marvin and Heidi at the Heritage Center certainly helped out with those pictures, and I dug through all mine and was able to come up with that many pictures. And I thought, well, picture tells a story in itself. You add those words or your thoughts of that time and era, and it will add to it. So I'm very proud of the book, and that's how I ended up. It started with a vision down in Albuquerque, New Mexico in '92. I didn't write it till 2011. So, it's a long time, but all the time I was gathering that information and kind of filing it away. And so from this book, we'll take a script from that book. My vision is to talk about, like I did in the book, the spirituality, the religion, the migration, how my family ended up at Buffalo Point in Warroad, how they married in and around Lake of the Woods, how the Bouchas actually came from La Prairie, Quebec, into Detroit, to Mackinac, to the UP, and then eventually up to Kenora, and how they intermarried into the Indian people on Lake of the Woods. How my mom and dad met, how we basically ended up in Middleborough and Middleborough, Manitoba, and Warroad, eventually living here, and how about my family and how I came to be, and then how I started playing road hockey with the taped up snooze can, running up and down the road, because we didn't have any equipment. We had no need for bags because we didn't have any equipment to put in the bag anyway. We had skates and a stick, and that was about it. And that's how we got our start. We didn't have TV. We didn't have, if we did, it was black and white, and it's all snowy. And, but we had to make our own fun, and that's how we did. Whether it was Eli or Ronnie Umhauer out there running up and down the road with us, or Micah Dave Rose, or Bob Winslow, or Rick Cron, or, you know, that's how we made our fun. And who knew at that time that we were honing our skills and having a good time to, you know, just passing the time basically, because we didn't want to be cooped up in the house. And my first recollection of playing road hockey, I was 4 or 5 years old, standing at the picture window, watching Shirley out there. Yeah, Shirley did actually play road hockey. It's hard to imagine now. I like to pick on her. So she's good with it. My older brothers and neighborhood kids, and you know, we're all out there, and they needed a goalie, so. They come in the house and said, Mom, can Henry come out and stand in the goal? So she bundled me up, and I was all excited, jumping up and down, and I ran out there and stood in the goal, and I had no idea what was going on. I remember coming in with black and blue marks and bruises, and I had a good time, I thought, you know, but it was probably more like torture out there for me. But that's how I got my start, and I don't know who started playing road hockey in Warroad. I know they've played it all over the place, and I don't know the time era, but there's a lot of great pictures in the book about early part of Warroad hockey dating back into the 1900s. I know when Warroad was young that, you know, there was a lot of people that came down from Winnipeg. Jeannie's dad came down from Winnipeg, and there's pictures in there of 1920s, you know, they're skating. Maybe on an outdoor rink or on the river, but they had these big, huge, high boards on the ends, probably from keeping the puck from going over or a windbreak. And it would go from blue line all the way around the back, and they were probably 12 feet high. And then between the blue lines is where the people stood. And you would change lines, and there was probably only, you know, 6, 8, 9 players, so you didn't get much of a chance to rest when you played in the early days, and then it was outside, so, and the equipment was poor, but that's where Warroad hockey got its start, and then it goes on from there. But the book basically goes into, you know, all of that stuff. It's interesting, and I know that most of you guys that are familiar with the area will appreciate some of the history in there, and of course some of the early start of Warroad hockey. One good thing that happened right before the book was released is that Adam Beach, who was a film star, he is an Objibwa from Manitoba. He has a hit TV series called Arctic Air, and he has been in Joe Dirt. He was the Indian in Joe Dirt. He did Wind Talkers, Flags of Our Fathers. He did Smoke Signals, and he's been in quite a few films. His executive director for his nonprofit called me up in Anchorage and stated that he would like to see a manuscript, so I sent him one. And they are optioning the book for a full feature film. We're working out the details, but we're still 2 or 3 years down the road by the time that stuff gets together. When you option a book or you start at the beginning, you know, you have to write a script for it, you have to put a budget together, you have to get your actors, you have to get your whole schedule worked out when everybody may be available. So, you know, this sort of thing is going to take anywhere from, you know, 2 to 3, 4, 5 years by the time you actually see it on the film. We will film. I'll be a consultant in on the production, and we'll make sure that there will be a lot of Warroad people, you know, as extras and some of the scenes on the river, and maybe some old hockey games and what have you. And I think we'll film here. We may film in Rainy River in the old arena, and Rainy River has the old houses yet. And you want to, when you do some sort of film like this, that's an era, 50s, 60s era, then you want to try to make it authentic. Your wardrobe will have you wear that era of clothing, and you can look in some of the pictures in the book that you'll see how we played. You know, we went to school wearing parkas and jeans and boots, and then we didn't go to the arena and change. We went to the arena and just put our skates on and had our stick, and that's how we played our intramural hockey. So it wasn't much different than going to school wearing the same clothes playing hockey. So, you know, that sort of thing. And you can kind of see the old parkas and stuff in there. And that's the type of wardrobe that I'm talking about. There'll be several scenes indoors, I'm sure, but a lot of outdoor scenes too. So I'm excited. I'm glad. I'm so glad that you guys were able to come out here today to visit and buy a book, and I think you'll appreciate the history of Warroad, the area, and Warroad hockey. And I am open for some questions now before we close and resume our book signing.
Hey, there's snooze can.
My dad's snooze can, but it was before that. And, you know, somebody started using those, but it was my dad's Copenhagen can that was empty, and sometimes they weren't empty. We'd dump them on the table and he'd get mad at us. But we'd put paper in there and then tape it up with black tape.
See, you started off playing goalie right from the get-go.
Right, I started playing goalie. Played goalie till I was 12.
You know, you could get hit in the face with that. It wouldn't hurt too bad.
Well, you'd have your teeth left anyway.
Well, I mean, look who's talking. No, but you could have, you could race it, you know. So
right.
As a goalie, that's kind of fun.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah.
Couldn't race the other one.
Right. So with that, if nobody has any questions or anything, I appreciate again that you guys spend an afternoon or half an hour out here at the library with me. I appreciate you all coming. Thank you very much.